I have insurance, and so I don't need to focus on anything else other than just my physical well-being, because a bike is completely replaceable. And the fact that you have insurance and that you're protected and you're covered, all you need to do is focus on yourself and getting yourself better. Like, I'm going to try and I'm going to take risks and I'm going to take chances, because why else? Why would you not, right? I'm Alicia Speak. I'm 37. I'm a full-time lawyer, but I'm also a cyclist for Cycle Team London.
Reception, we're like, where'd that come from? Thank you. Hello, hello, hello. Woo! Make some noise, I like it. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, yes, good. We have a rider renowned as much for his tactics and the astute way that he managed to win races as the incredible talent that he displayed. Winner of Milan San Remo, Australian champion, first Australian to win a stage in all 3 Grand Tours, ladies and gentlemen, Simon Gerrans. I'll give you another kiss. I'll give you another kiss. That's a home welcome for you now, Simon. This is your home, London. Yeah. Do we accept him as an honorary Londoner? No! How is London life?
Good, it's busy.
Yeah?
Yeah, but it's been a great change. So I've been in London coming up 12 months now, and it's gone past in a flash.
Did you ever think you'd be a Londoner? Did you ever think you'd come and live here?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah?
It's a big wide world, and Australia's a long way away. So I thought, why not experience some other parts of the world outside of cycling before going back to Australia? I think Australia's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
So why not?
Well, let's talk about your amazing cycling career then. 4 stage wins at the Grand Tours, individual, of course. Then there were the team time trials. Which of those stood out for you, and for what reason?
They're all so special in their own way, but I think my first win in the Tour de France was my first Grand Tour stage win. That was really special, because for that point, it's like I really felt like I arrived on the big stage, and I justified my place in the pro peloton by winning a stage in the Tour de France. So that was special, but probably the one that was the most special was actually the team time trial victory with Orica Green Edge. I sort of ended up in the yellow jersey off the back of that, but that was just a really special feeling to win that stage alongside a bunch of really close mates, and to celebrate that all together. That was pretty amazing.
So was that the team element of it, or the fact that you ended up in the yellow jersey, or a bit of both?
It was more the team element than anything else. Obviously, to wear the yellow jersey is a huge honour, and it's a very special thing that not many people get to experience. But to win alongside mates and stand up on the podium all together as winners of that stage is what made it extra special.
That was 2013, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
As you say, not many people get to experience what it's like to wear a yellow jersey. I'm presuming no one else here has ever done it. I'm going to take a
couple of guys out the back room.
Yeah, there are a few in the vicinity. But what is that like? As a cyclist, you're going to dream of that moment. You're going to dream of that day. What's it actually like? Because a lot of the time I speak to people immediately after maybe their day in yellow, and it feels like from them it's gone in a blur, that they weren't able to properly enjoy it, because obviously you're at the Tour de France. It's the hardest bike race in the world. What do you remember from that day?
You're not really thinking about it too much at the time. You're kind of just in the moment. You're so focused on the job at hand. It's defending the yellow jersey. It's trying to win the next stage. There's so much going on at the Tour de France. It's probably only afterwards, when you finish the race, you go home, you decompress just a little bit, the reality of it sinks in, what you've achieved to lead the Tour de France. Because you become known worldwide overnight by leading the Tour de France, and that makes it pretty special.
Were there any flashes of anything during that day? Maybe a fan calling from the side of the road, or a realization, can't see where we are now, a realization of looking down and seeing that yellow jersey, or is there any distinct memory or feel or smell or sensation from that day that you think, oh yeah, that takes me back?
I think the one thing that stands out, you just understand the day that everyone looks for you. Every spectator on the side of the road is looking for the yellow jersey, and everybody knows your name. So everybody's cheering for you on that one day. So that makes it. That's one thing that I'll never forget, and yeah, that's one thing that's sort of etched into my memory from those couple of days.
So you won 2 stages at the Tour de France and a stage each at the Giro and the Vuelta. How do they compare? I mean, we were chatting quite a bit this season on the breakaway. You were a guest on the breakaway in Eurosport in the Giro, and talking about what it takes to win a stage at a Grand Tour. Do they compare? Do they differ in any noticeable way, or is it just a case of try your luck on the day?
No, my stage, I was never good enough just to try my luck on the day and see if I could finish in the front. Yeah, my wins were all very well planned, very strategic, how I went about that. So a lot of planning went into winning on those stages. Early on in my career, I would get the race book and I would circle the stages profile-wise that I thought suited me, and then you worked out at what point in the race it would calm down and the breakaways would sort of have more chances of surviving to the finish, and those were the days I targeted. And then
how far in advance, I'm intrigued, how far in advance of a Grand Tour would you sit down with that road book and say, that's the day, that's the spot, that's where I'm going to go?
As soon as they released the stage details, you started to pencil out what days I was going to target. And then from that point on, I would start to do some specific training for those particular days. But for myself, I was really targeting the days that really replicated sort of a hilly one-day race, is what I was going for. And I literally raced them like they were a one-day race as well. Ride into them as easy as possible, go all out for that one day, and then try and recover as hard as that is in a race like the Tour de France the following days.
So on 4 occasions that worked perfectly in your career. How many times did you sit down with the road book and plan? It would have been from this time in the season, I guess, because we know details of races for next year. How many times did that not work out?
Oh, many times. Many more times than the 4 times it did work out. But when I made that breakaway, the biggest battle was actually to make the breakaway. And once you're out there, you were no longer competing against the whole peloton, you're competing against the group of guys around you. You had to motivate everybody for the breakaway to survive to the finish. You had to hope that there was not enough motivation in the peloton to chase you down again, and you just had to meet the guys in your immediate company. So once you were whittling down, your chances got better and better.
So this is one thing that intrigues me, the whole politics and the internal workings of a breakaway, and how any breakaway can survive and how others don't. How did you read which breakaway to get into? I mean, you're looking at the stage, you're thinking, right, today's my day. This is my day. Whatever breakaway goes, I've got to be in it. So did you just have to pray that the riders that came with you or that you ended up with were the ones that would be allowed to get away? Just hope that fell in your favour?
Well, you'd look for certain things. It's like, okay, what other teams or what other riders are going to be targeting this stage today? So you've got to make sure that if one of those guys go away, then you've got to try and accompany them in the breakaway. You kind of work out when is the leader of the team that's leading the race, when are they going to try and shut the race down to sort of motivate a breakaway to go away. So as soon as that's starting to happen, you know you've got to be in front of those guys as well. So there's many things that are going on within the peloton that you're keeping an eye on to sort of enhance your chances of getting in that move.
How do those stage wins and how you went about them compare with the likes of Milan-San Remo, compare with the likes of Liège-Bastogne-Liège?
Oh, they're very similar, to the point that the preparation that goes into them, it was all very well planned, very strategic, and you go in with a plan of how you're going to attack the race. More so for me, that was in Liège than San Remo. San Remo went in as sort of the plan B option of the team because we had the defending champion, Matt Goss, in the team that year in 2012. And I was given the opportunity late in the race to take my chances, and that unfolded.
Which of those do you think you're proudest of, and for what reason? Milan-San Remo is, to cycling fans, possibly a greater achievement. Anyone outside of cycling will understand a stage win at the Tour de France better. Which means more to you?
My win in Liège-Bastogne-Liège is my favourite.
The one I didn't mention.
Yeah, the other one. Because
Why?
Because there was so much that went into that victory. That was, like, for many, many years, I think it was probably the 10th time I'd competed in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. It took me 3 or 4 editions even to finish the race, to get to the end, let alone being remotely competitive. I only finished in the front group going for the victory once in that race, and I managed to pull it off for a win. So there was just so much preparation that went into that, and then I had the full support of the team. Everyone was around me on that day, and everybody played their part in that victory, so that made it pretty special.
I mentioned in the intro that you're known for being tactically astute. Is that something that actually came off the back of all of that preparation? Is that something you're born with or something you can learn, do you think?
I think you definitely learn the process, and it's learning through trial and error. Like you try one thing in a race, it didn't quite work out. Okay, you'll do something a little bit different in that same situation next time. But there are no two situations in cycling that are ever identical. So you've got to be dynamic. You've got to be able to sort of just not even think on your feet, but react on your feet and be instinctive about what's happening. So it is something that you learn, but you definitely get better at with experience.
Do you learn from people around you, or do you learn from yourself? Do you have to learn how you do it and how your body and mind work in that situation, or can you glean those lessons from other people?
You definitely learn a lot more from yourself, but I always paid a lot of attention to the other riders as well, how they might race, what were their strengths, what were their weaknesses, how could you play on either of those to your advantage and get the best out of the situation. So you learn from your mistakes, what you do wrong and right, and you also learn from watching others.
How do the Grand Tours in particular compare these days? You know, when we sat and we watched the Giro day in, day out, how did that compare to when you started racing in particular?
I think the racing, well, for me, this year's Tour de France was one of the most exciting I'd ever watched. Or, you know, I thought it was way more exciting than any Tour de France I ever competed in.
So why? What made it so exciting for you?
It was just a dynamic race. There were different people winning each day. There were sort of some outsiders that were doing some phenomenal rides. You know, obviously Alaphilippe he had a phenomenal race and he really inspired the French public and he had a lot of support there. So there was just so much happening in this year's Tour de France, which made it interesting. And I think going into the race, there are a number of guys who look like podium contenders. So it just made it a really interesting race. But how I see it these days being different from when I first started doing Grand Tours, the race is a lot more closed now. You notice a breakaway will go away in the first at least the first week of the race, and it'll be 2 or 3 guys. The peloton will keep them within 5 minutes. Yeah. It's pretty much just the same scripts day in, day out. Gone are the days where a break will go away and the peloton will give them 15 or 20 minutes and then reel them in at breakneck speed. So it's a lot more calculated from the peloton's perspective, probably a little bit more sterile.
Well, that's my question, I guess. It does make it more sterile to watch. And when I ask current riders or current team managers, they sort of shrug their shoulders and say, well, our job is to win a race. Our job is not to sell this sport. But is their job to sell the sport as well, to an extent? And what can be done then to make the racing on stages that do become a little bit more formulaic? What can be done to ignite that a little bit?
Yeah, I agree with the riders in the fact that they're paid to win and they're paid to perform, so they're not paid to put on a show as such. But I think the race organisers are definitely moving towards making the racing more exciting by including these short mountain stages in the Tour, which are some of the most exciting to watch. It plays out like watching a movie. It's all over in a few hours. It's racing full speed from start to finish, and it's making the racing a lot more interesting, that's for sure.
Who's doing the best job of that, of making the racing and making the Grand Tours exciting of the three? Which race?
The Vuelta has always been one of the more exciting races to watch, I think, because you get to that point in the season and no one's completely sure of their form. You've got guys basically that have had ordinary seasons that are targeting the Vuelta. You've had guys that have had a great season and they're running out of form by the Tour of Spain. So that's always been a really exciting race to watch. And traditionally the stages were all a little bit shorter in the Vuelta. So again, that made the racing a little bit more dynamic.
You had your fair share of wins throughout your career, but you did an awful lot of work for other people as well. When it comes to being, say, road captain, for example, what does that entail these days? It's almost become like a job title, hasn't it? You know, it's gone from being something quite casual and informal to being something now that riders seem to target even as a role within their career.
Yeah, I think the road captain role in a team is basically like the captain coach on the road. You're sort of thinking about everybody in the team, making sure everyone is fulfilling their job, fulfilling their roles, so the team leader can focus 100% on his job of winning the race. So it's a very well respected role within the peloton, and it's generally of a guy for guys with a bit more experience that have seen a lot more situations unfold. And that was basically the role I took on for my last season professional at BMC, and it's a role that I really enjoyed.
Why did you enjoy it? What did you like about it?
I think it was a great opportunity just to basically pass on my experiences and try and help develop the next generation of riders coming through. I sort of see these guys coming through and they had 10 times more talent than I thought I had as a racer. So to try and steer their careers the right way and help them get the most out of themselves, it was a really fulfilling role.
Do you look at any riders these days and think, there's a bit of me in him? Is there anyone that you recognise in the current peloton, how they ride, how they approach races? I guess you don't see the planning that goes into it that we're talking about, but is there anyone that you think, I recognise that?
Not exactly, no, because I think a lot of what goes into it you don't see from watching the television. So unless you're there with these guys sort of on the ground, seeing how hard they're working, seeing how focused they are, you don't really get a feel for the sort of riders they are. But in saying that, the level of racing is so high now throughout the entire season. Everyone is so professional from sort of January through to sort of November. The racing is just super competitive, so everyone has to apply themselves.
You mentioned riding for BMC, that your win with Orica, you rode with Team Sky as well, Crédit Agricole. What are the main differences between each of those teams? Because you're saying, how I guess, professionalised the whole sport is becoming, and it feels like there are more teams now hitting that top level. What was the difference that you saw in your time through those teams?
Again, it was just that level of professionalism that increased throughout my career. And I think, my first few teams were French teams. They were very traditional in their approaches, how they would go about things.
Do you think that's changed?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I think a few years ago, I was lucky enough to be a part of the first couple of years of Team Sky, and they just raised the bar of professionalism in the sport. How they approached it, they were looking at every element of professionalism within the team. And that just basically forced everyone to level up one more notch. And I think that's forced the French teams, forced more traditional teams to really to assess how they approach the sport.
Given that level of professionalism, I guess, that you saw, and Team Sky were much mocked, they're much maligned really for their attention to detail and marginal gains and all the rest of it, but it's something that obviously everyone has copied now. Have you taken any of that from your cycling career into your new career?
Oh, very much so. I learned what I learned a lot at Team Sky, and I was able to implement that to the last few years of my career after I left that team, and I think that was a big part of sort of the best years of my career at Green Edge following that. And I guess that strategic approach is something that I put into what I'm doing now post-career. There's a lot of planning to go through my transition out of the peloton into a new job. So I think it was sort of the person that I am, but it's definitely a lot of things that I learned from that organisation as well.
Because for anyone who doesn't know what Simon does these days, he's just finished a traineeship at Goldman Sachs, an internship, and now you're full-time there. How is life away from cycling and in the world of finance?
Yeah, it couldn't be more different, in fact, with regards to what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. But the approach is very similar. I'm surrounded by world-class people that are the absolute best in their chosen field. So that forces you to level up pretty quickly when you're surrounded by great people. So the transition into my new job has been really good, and it was something really good to focus on.
Why that switch? You built up all of this experience, all of this knowledge, all of this training that you put into place in cycling. Why on earth did you go, scrap all that, I'm going to do something completely different from scratch?
I think I was just up for a new challenge. Cycling is what I've lived, eaten, breathed for so long. I thought it's going to be great to step away and just learn about something completely different. And I always thought, I'm probably going to end up back involved in the sport in some way in the future, but I'll be better for experiencing something else, because already now when I go back to a bike race or involved in a cycling event, I'm looking through it through different eyes. So I think when that point comes, I think I'll be much better for experiencing a corporate career as well.
Are you still a fan of the sport? Do you watch it much?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a big fan of the sport. I finished feeling really proud of my career, and I really enjoy getting back to see a bike race whenever I have the opportunity. It's only on a weekend now that I'll try and watch a race on TV. I still follow the results really closely and obviously keep in touch with many good friends.
What's your favourite race to watch?
I love watching the classics. Yeah, the classics is something that was always such a huge part of my racing career, so that's something that I enjoy watching and seeing how guys are going in that.
Are you a nightmare for your wife watching alongside you, and you're watching Milan-San Remo and you go, no, don't go there, you got to wait, you got to go there, that was a terrible move?
No, that's my son doing that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My 8-year-old, he's the one screaming at the television. So, he's the biggest sports fan going around. So it's always entertaining to sit and watch a sporting event with him.
Any talent there that you're trying to nurture or let him do his own thing?
All their talent comes from their mother.
Oh,
That's what I say.
Right answer. Yeah.
But no, they're definitely super competitive, my kids, and they'll find their own way into whatever sport they want to do. That's for sure.
Well, Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you. It's always lovely. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Simon Gerrans. Thank you. Right, guys, don't go anywhere because we've got one last very special guest on this stage. A legendary, it says it here, legendary team manager, remarkably without a team. Kenny van Vlamink will be making his first appearance at this year's Rouleur Classic. He'll be back in a sec.